Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is JC. In this channel, I share what I've learned in business, software programming, and marketing. This will help you to be more successful in your career and business. Today, we're going to continue studying the Rockefeller success stories, and today will be the part 3. So let's take a look at the Rockefeller Habits together. Cultivate unassailable poise and reserve. His usual attitude towards all men was one of deep reserve, concealed beneath commonplaces and humorous anecdotes. He had the art, with friends and guests, of chatting freely, of calling out others, but of revealing little or nothing of his own innermost thoughts. This is by Rockefeller's financial advisor. As a boy, John D. Rockefeller's mother taught him, "Control of self wins the battle, for it means control of others." He took that maxim to heart, adopting a far different leadership style than the stereotypical corporate tycoon, cultivating a power that relied not on loud, blustering displays and belligerent table pounding, but quiet authority and a sphinx-like demeanor. As a young man, he had struggled with his temper, but he had trained himself to control it and moved through the rest of life with exceptional equanimity, remaining poised and unruffled no matter the circumstances. Even as a teenager, Chernow notes, Rockefeller was extremely composed in a crisis. The more agitated others became, the calmer he grew. This unflappability was accompanied by a studied reserve, though he was far warmer and genial than often pictured in the public imagination. He typically revealed little of his thoughts, even to close associates, and secreted himself in a shroud of privacy. Such a stance was not simply a matter of preference or personality, but a deliberate, tactical strategy. Mastering his moods, reactions, and expressions, and living another of his favorite maxims. Success comes from keeping the ears open and the mouth closed, gave Rockefeller an incomparable edge. In dealing with employees, no matter how far down the ladder, he never lost his cool, even when they presented him with grievances. As one refinery worker recalled, "He always had a nod and a kind word for everybody. He never forgot anyone." We had some trying times in the business in those early years, but I have never seen Mr. Rockefeller when he was not friendly and kind and unruffled. Nothing excited him. Chernow notes that many of his other subordinates corroborated this description of their boss, saying that he never raised his voice, uttered a profane or slang word, or acted discourteously. Such behavior won Rockefeller excellent reviews from employees who regarded him as fair and benevolent, free of petty temper and dictatorial airs. Believing there was strength in silence, Rockefeller listened far more than he talked in his meetings, with the men at the top as well, and this air of almost supernatural calm only heightened his influence in the boardroom. As Chernow explains, the quieter he was, the more forceful his presence seemed, and he played on his mystique as the resident genius immune to petty concerns. Rockefeller, in fact, sometimes napped, or seemed to, on a couch in the director's conference room, only opening his eyes from time to time to add a comment to the proceedings. Even when his associates engaged in heated debate, the chairman of Standard Oil maintained his composure. As one director recalled, "I have seen board meetings when excited men shouted profanity and made menacing gestures, but Mr. Rockefeller, maintaining the utmost courtesy, continued to dominate the room." When dealing with adversaries, Rockefeller's reserve worked to upset their balance. His long silences while negotiating deals often threw members of the other party off their game, tying them up in self-defeating knots. Virtually immune to intimidation, he answered the questions of hostile interrogators in a slow, cool, dignified way that frustrated their purposes. Rockefeller loved to tell the story of the time an irate contractor burst into his office and laid into him with an angry tirade. Rockefeller sat with back turned, hunched over a writing desk until the tough lashing ran its course. Then he spun around in his swivel chair, faced the scold, and coolly asked, "I didn't catch what you were saying. Would you mind repeating that?" Colleagues and rivals alike found him hard to read. For one thing, he had practiced the ability to maintain a perfect poker face when receiving a letter or telegram to conceal the kind of news it contained, and equally hard to reach. He wouldn't see unsolicited visitors in his office, and those who wished to meet with him had to make their approach by letter. As Janal observed, his remoteness frustrated opponents who felt they were boxing with a ghost. Rockefeller also vigilantly maintained his privacy when it came to the press, routinely turning down interview requests, especially early in his career. Not only did he simply dislike anyone prying into his business, but he believed that familiarity bred contempt, and that the less access you gave the media, the more you preserved the public's fascination. Plus, he felt that speaking with journalists was an easy way to unintentionally share a trade secret that was best kept close to the vest. Even when the press criticized him, as famous muckrakers like Ida Tarbell did, to great acclaim and attention, Rockefeller chose to keep silent. He rarely even read those critics, not because he couldn't take feedback. He actively solicited it up and down the Standard Oil ladder, but because he disdained criticism from those he felt lacked sufficient skin in the game. It is one thing to stand on the comfort ground of placid in action and put forth words of cynical wisdom, he said, and another to plunge into the work itself and through strenuous experience earn the right to express strong conclusions. Though critics he felt were misguided or outright wrong did get under his skin, he controlled his urge to react, leading one of his partners to exclaim, "John, you have a hide like a rhinoceros." This ironclad restraint came from his inner directed nature. He simply didn't crave the approval of others, especially those he didn't respect. His membership in the Never Complain, Never Explain school of response is perhaps best explained by an anecdote recalled by a friend. The two men were walking around Rockefeller's estate, with his companion urging him to respond to his critics. By way of an answer, Rockefeller pointed to a caterpillar crossing their path. "If I step on that worm, I will call attention to it," he said. "If I ignore it, it will disappear." So that's that for the Rockefeller's story habit. And he has a habit of maintaining calm and poise, reserve. And this is something that I think we should all learn from, especially when we grow up as adults and especially as business people. It's much better if you can conceal your feelings and then just make rational decisions rather than letting your feelings take control and take over, what you want to do. And if you let feelings and emotions to control you, then you're more like a kid or a child, and you will lose the ability to make proper judgment calls. So that will be detrimental to your business or your career. So this is the biggest lesson I've learned in this section of the Rockefeller stories. And I hope that you'll find this helpful. Tomorrow, we're gonna continue studying the Rockefeller Habits stories. And I'll see you in the next video.